Eagles get to the red-hot SMU ponies, Mustangs.
So are you guys just incapable of reading schedules?
No,
or?
that's like me doing the top 5 when Paul's not here all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we did one, Craig and I did one when you were gone.
But he's here.
That felt fine.
That one was so smooth and like it just really
it really did. It wasn't
well.
like...
Hey, Garrett, can you just sign us off right now?
Hey, don't tempt me after the last couple of days I've had. Yeah, right up this door.
No, if you're here, we can do a schedule, whether you're by yourself or whoever. If Paul's not here, we will start doing the top 5 then. Is that what he's suggesting?
No. Craig, I think the thing is you frame this better than the two of us.
Yeah,
you really do.
You gotcha. Well, I appreciate it. So SMU on the docket today as we roll through the ACC, and this has got to mean that we're getting close to starting a new conference here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. I mean, how many we got? What, Wake Forest still left? Who else is in?
You got
Syracuse,
Syracuse, Wake Forest.
So
There's a couple other,
so at least 3 of them. So yeah,
the
Valparaiso.
Virginia school,
Valparaiso.
Virginia. We have Stanford, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and Wake.
Oh, we got another week.
So about this time next week, we'll be starting.
We'll go Big Ten.
Big Ten. Okay, that's the decision made. Big Ten to start next week, and then we'll go SEC, and then we'll do the pack, whatever that looks like by the time that rolls around, I guess, or maybe we won't if it's still just two schools.
We'll include Oregon State and Washington State. We like that.
I don't know that I'm going to want to get down into like the Missouri Valley Conference in July.
Well,
I'm really not. But we'll see where we are.
Yep.
So SMU coming off of an incredible year for the Ponies, first year in the ACC. Rhett Lashley, a big-time coach who is only going to become a more hot commodity, I feel like, especially if he puts the Ponies in the playoff on a regular basis. But in their first year in the big ACC, that big move they made, pouring all that money in, it paid off handsomely as they were able to play for the conference championship and also make the college football playoff as one of the ACC reps. And quite frankly, had a lot of opportunities to win the ACC in that game against Clemson, that 34-31 contest. So they were right there knocking on the door. Still made the playoff regardless, which showed you how strong of a year they had. But they did have the loss to BYU, which was one that was very interesting that didn't ding them as much as it hurt or didn't help BYU at all seemingly. But that was one of their little Big 12 contests. Interesting thing is they got a couple of those in their non-cons. There's going to be some S-talking between the usual SMU handful of suspects and all of their anti-Big 12 rhetoric versus the Big 12 fans, especially from Fort Worth, that love to poke at them. So let's get right into a couple of those matchups. First things first, though, this schedule will start off with Nevada. Had last year's schedule pulled up. This schedule will start off on Saturday, August the 30th at home there in Dallas against East Texas A&M, the school formerly known as Texas A&M Commerce, right?
And before that, East Texas State University.
East Texas State. I actually like that better.
It absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, it's East Texas A&M now, and that's who SMU has up first on the schedule on Saturday, August the 30th. Of course, this is not a full-blown preview, but worth mentioning, Kevin Jennings will be back. I'd imagine there's probably very few players in the entire country hungrier than him to play again and to right wrongs or to just get a new taste in his mouth after the way the season ended. But he's one of several players they've got back. So East Texas A&M, that's a W. But then, like I said, there's going to be some Big 12 SMU smack talk in this first month of the season because the first of their 2 contests against Big 12 teams occurs on Saturday, September 6th, literally like a mile almost exactly this direction from where I'm sitting right now. I mean, if there was we tore this wall down, I could see McLean Stadium, right? From right where I'm sitting right here.
Yep.
So it's literally going to be right there, SMU Baylor on Saturday, September 6th.
They're at SMU.
They're at SMU.
Sorry. Yes, you're right. So that will not be the case. It will be, you guys should have done this when I wasn't here. It will be in Dallas, so that first game in Dallas. Then on Saturday, September 13th, after playing Baylor, they do hit the road for a couple of games. So the first 2 games at home, and then it's 2 road games. Interesting thing about their schedule is that they're one of the few teams that we've come across in doing nearly 2 of these big leagues now that has just their non-cons all up front. And they're just all right there at the very beginning. We see a lot of the SEC with like the game, in late October, November. We saw some other kind of weird schedules in the ACC, but literally all 4 of their non-con games right there in the first month of the season. So at Missouri State on Saturday, September 13th is a very unique road trip to be taking. But they will be taking that, and then the following week they'll be back at home on Saturday, September the 20th. The following week they'll be back on the road on Saturday, September the 20th at TCU. So sorry for the miscues here, but East Texas A&M at home, Baylor at home, Missouri State on the road, TCU on the road. That is the first month of the season. They hit their first bye week before conference play on Saturday, September the 27th, so they'll have 2 weeks to prepare for the next chapter that I will get into, but 4 games and then a break, including Baylor at home and TCU on the road.
Having to go to Missouri State's kind of weird.
It's very weird.
But, that's the deal. Baylor and TCU in the old Southwest Conference rematches, and I'm not completely sure how Baylor fans feel about SMU. I mean, they've been like kind of an afterthought to them for so long.
I think that if I had to summarize it best, they are very much looking in the mirror at one another in a lot of ways. But I think there's a superiority feeling with Baylor because they're in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And they were probably, along with TCU, pushing as hard as anybody to not have SMU enter the Big 12 at any point. So then SMU goes on the run they did last year, and I don't think that sits well with people. I think there's going to be a lot of bad blood with these 3 Texas private schools in the first month of the season.
Well, yeah, we know that the Skillet game, I mean, that one, there's no love lost. It's just Baylor and SMU play so rarely now.
First game at McLean Stadium was SMU.
Yeah. And then, like, it just hasn't been that much since then. And they, I would like to see them play more. It's just such a natural thing. I hope it gets rowdy up there. And look, SMU fans, they certainly have taken it to heart that they were left out of things for so long, and that they were like, there's an enthusiasm there that is kind of unique because nobody else has gone through what that fan base has gone through. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that one because that should be, second week of the season. That's 2 teams with most of their good players. Excuse me.
Are you okay with it? Yeah.
Most of their good players from last year back.
So SMU and Baylor, all-time 39 wins for Baylor, 36 wins for SMU, 7 ties. Baylor is currently on a 13-game win streak. So pre-death penalty, SMU actually held like a 36-26 advantage in the all-time series. And then from 1989 onward, in the 13 matchups they've played since then, all of those have been Baylor wins. So they've flipped it from a 10-game deficit to a 39-36 Baylor advantage in the all-time. But, 13 straight for the Bears. They played last in 2016. It was Chad Morris and Jim Grobe. You played again in 2015. Chad Morris, Art Briles. 2014, Tom Mason and Art Briles. They played in 2012. So they had a stretch there where they played 4 out of, 5 years, including 3 consecutive, but it'll be the first meeting since 2016. And then obviously the Iron Skillet is always a pretty hot and heavy game. So a couple big-time matchups on the non-con for SMU, and as much of bragging rights and just sort of territory claiming in the state of Texas superiority as you're going to find in college football in these first few weeks, I would think. So 2 big rivalry games, 2 games that you absolutely feel like you would win with your eyes closed, even though Missouri State is weirdly a road game. But that's part of what you do when you create these non-cons. So I was surprised to see that this was not like a 2-for-1 either for SMU. This is legit just like 1-1. Like we play you in 25 and 26, and so they'll get the return game in Dallas from Missouri State next year, but don't see that often. So open week September 27th and leads you into the ACC schedule on Saturday, October the 4th, after having a couple weeks to breathe a little bit. And I would think if you're sitting at 4-0 and you've got wins over Baylor and then TCU on the road, you're feeling incredible about things. 3-1, you'd still feel really good. 2-2 would not be off the table by any means, but I think obviously, in light of last year, that would be a big disappointment. So very curious to see where they are after that first month. But when they do begin conference play, it is Fran Brown and the Syracuse Orange on Saturday, October the 4th. The following week, they will again be at home as they welcome in the Stanford Cardinal and whoever their head coach is. The following week, it's weird how their schedule works. 2 home games to start the year, 2 road games following that, a bye week, start conference play, 2 home games to start conference play, 2 road games to start conference play. So they're doing a 2-2, 2-2 thing through the first few weeks. But when they do hit the road there in mid-October in conference play, it'll be October the 18th at Clemson. And then on Saturday, October the 25th, they will travel to Wake Forest. They don't get a break. They continue for a couple weeks longer, as on Saturday, November the 1st, they will play the Miami Hurricanes in Dallas. So I'd imagine that'll have some spice. Like, what was the crowd like for FSU last year? I don't even know how deep we got into it.
It was thick. I mean, like there were a lot of FSU fans there. We were united but unenthused.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Who won that game?
SMU by $1 billion.
That's right. We had their quarterback on.
Yeah.
Do you remember Florida State in 2024?
Yeah, no. So there were a lot. I mean, like there were a ton of Florida State fans there, a ton. But
Scarlet colors, or did they have the?
Oh no, we showed out. We overbought our allotment. But the ponies trampled us. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of an ass whooping that was not expected when that schedule was first announced. And by the way, when you ask the question, which is probably tongue-in-cheek anyway, of who won that game when it comes to Florida State, the only 2 times that the answer is Florida State was Cal and Charleston Southern. That's the only 2 from last year. So
hey, those are some juggernauts.
Charleston Southern. I mean, I don't know if you people have ever heard of them, but because I hadn't.
Yeah.
Well, I honestly had not heard of Charleston Southern until they were on the schedule.
I think I heard from them from basketball or something.
I watched about 2 quarters of the game, and they were honestly the worst football team I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
awful.
FSU decimated them. So as rough as their year was, like every game was either a loss or like a 5-point win over Cal. They beat the mess out of Charleston Southern. So anyways, at Boston College on November the 8th, I got to that point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then –
if you're asking about the Miami crowd, though, I will tell you.
I was asking.
If you're asking about the Miami
that was
crowd,
my point of asking that. Yeah.
I don't think it'll be very big.
Okay.
They don't travel very well unless it's in state.
And I don't know that there's really like a big contingent of Canes fans in Dallas.
I mean, they'll be like the ones that are
or any big city
that are there, like in any big city. You know, every city like Dallas has. You know, Boston College will have 15 people in Dallas that get together and watch games. You know, like that's just how it is. Excuse me again. I've got the burps.
There's nothing worse than that.
It's awful. Right in the middle of the
hiccups
show.
or
burps? Hiccups.
It's hiccups. I don't know what it is, but anyway. But Miami, I don't think they're going to roll out quite as many people. But if they are good again, you will see people come out of the woodwork. They do have a tremendous amount of T-shirt fans as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you were to bank on where the most cocaine in the United States would be, stereotypically, it would be the Miami SMU game in Dallas on November the 1st.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so Miami on November the 1st, then at Boston College on November the 8th closes out that second window. November 15th, their second and final bye week, and then just 2 games to close out the season. So that second stretch, you go from 4 games at the beginning to 6 games nonstop there in the middle. Including 3 road trips in that middle section. But then when you come back all rested up with your final bye week on Saturday, November 22nd, you'll take on Louisville at home. And then on Saturday, November 29th, you will travel not all the way across the country like some other ACC schools have to, just halfway across the country like SMU has to do with basically all of their conference opponents now. Yeah. So it's either to the West Coast or to the East Coast. They will be going to the West Coast to take on the Cal Golden Bears out in Berkeley, which that'll be some snooty tailgating potentially. I know I'm putting like diametrically opposed, almost like SMU stereotypes out here, but they all work together. Trust me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, SMU at Cal to close it out on Saturday, November the 29th. That is the SMU schedule. 4 games bye week, 6 games bye week, 2 games to close it out. The weird road trip to Missouri State. Also traveling just across the way to TCU, to Clemson, to Wake Forest, up to Boston to take on BC, and then to Berkeley to take on Cal. So if you're an SMU fan, and like a lot of college football fans I found aren't even necessarily fans of the football, but of the atmosphere and of the road trips. Pretty good little road trips for an SMU fan.
You too.
Compared especially to what they were doing a couple of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get to go to the Bay Area. You get to go to Boston, to North Carolina. I mean, yeah, to Clemson, South Carolina. But, I mean, not the best part of South Carolina, but a cool ass stadium for sure.
Yeah.
You know what? You want to know why Clemson's strategy ensuing the ACC was better than FSU's?
Because they weren't as arrogant?
No. And here's why. Yes. Here's why it paid off. SMU's first game against Clemson is where and when? In the middle of the season at Clemson. SMU's first ACC game ever at home against FSU.
You're damn right, because
FSU was certainly, and you'll never convince me of this, and I don't think it's wrong. I'm actually kind of on Jim Phillips' side. I can see his perspective. Oh, you don't like us as we're making a new schedule and have new teams and want to leave? Okay. Here you go.
Remember what the Big Ten did to Scott Frost and Nebraska during COVID?
Yeah, the same thing. Scott Frost didn't deserve that. But by being just open about, let's play the season, that was dumb. But
well, why?
Yeah, exactly. No, not him was dumb.
Yeah.
It was dumb for them to do that.
Yeah.
Him being open about, hey, we should play the season when other schools are doing it, that was an unfair punishment. This, I do think, had some... I think it was fair. They were already going to Ireland.
A conference would not ever take sides.
Absolutely, they would. And especially
the Big 12 ever do that?
Yeah.
For Texas for a pretty long time.
Yeah, so it's just wild to see that, because I think that's the thing that when I looked at this schedule jumped out at me, Clemson gets them in the middle and they don't get a big, SMU and the ACC, that's the parade. That's the pomp and circumstance. President Bush came out and they rolled out Eric Dickerson. Not in a Trans Am, though, which I think was a missed opportunity. But
because didn't A&M buy the Trans Am?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it wasn't theirs.
You want to get the guy whose father did it?
Yeah.
We'll get him on the show.
A&M didn't buy them a Trans Am for it. But no, they rolled him out there. It was this whole big thing about the ACC. So Florida State already not good, and then they're walking into the celebration of SMU's resurrection into major college football. Yeah, that's where you're, it's where they're throwing you into the lion's den for sure.
When we had Mike Buddy on the TCU AD, he was talking about that TCU SMU rivalry, and he mentioned he has not really had much feedback from those who want to continue that, but there were some responses to that after we put that up, and there were some SMU or TCU fans that said, "Well, wait a minute." Some of, again, that might have been 22 people, but there was some response to they want that to continue. Whether it does, I don't know.
I think it would be dumb not to do that. I mean, you're just so close. It'd be stupid to go do what? Play Missouri State on the road, or
go to another Power 5 and spend money on a home and away. You're right there.
I guess if you want to have the big road trips, going back to that part of the conversation, or the highlights of the schedule is some of the road trips on there. But man. Sometimes it's nice to just drive less than an hour somewhere and watch a football game and drive less than an hour back home and be back home and not be in an airport or whatever. So I just think historically, the fact that both schools, let's stop doing this now that we're both in power conferences. Now that the game's the biggest it could possibly be, let's stop playing the game. I could keep going on, but I think the idea of ending that rivalry is just moronic. So hopefully they don't do that. But it's college sports, so money will determine what they do.
Well, you need good TV games. That's going to be a good TV game. So
potentially, yeah. But in terms of who they don't play, I mean, just some of the teams off the top of my head and going through the schedule, they don't play Georgia Tech. They don't play Duke. They don't play Virginia Tech. They don't play NC State. They don't play Pitt. And, I mean, they don't play, I think, Virginia as well. But, I mean, those are just –
UNC? They don't play UNC?
You don't play UNC. Yeah, that was one of the teams I was missing. So, in terms of some of the interesting teams, Georgia Tech, Duke, UNC, NC State, Vatech, Pitt, some of the potential contenders there in the ACC, they miss out on all of them. But they do play Syracuse and Clemson and Miami and Louisville, and they do have, a couple of road trips there that'll take them a pretty far ways to Boston and then to Berkeley. So, and then there's, of course, the two Big 12 games right there in the beginning of the schedule, September 6th and September 20th, where there will be a lot of trash talking, at least in this area of the Golden Triangle. And if SMU, God forbid, they win those two games, then, man, you talk about insufferable. And I wouldn't blame them if they went and beat Baylor and TCU, and especially after a year of going to the college football playoff. They're the most successful of the three most recently. So there's the 2025 SMU schedule highlights and rundown.
But it is like when you have Baylor, TCU, Syracuse, Clemson, Louisville, and Miami all on the schedule. That's a tough schedule. That's a real tough schedule.
Well, let's compare it to, real quick, because I know we got to go here, but let's compare it to if you're buying season tickets for that and just name off the teams that you just named off, I guess.
Baylor, TCU, Miami, Clemson, Louisville.
Yeah, so like 2023, they played Oklahoma in the non-con. They played TCU. And then after that, I mean, they got a top 25, barely Tulane in New Orleans at the end of the year, but Temple and Rice compared to Berkeley and to Boston. I mean, you're going to Philly and Houston, so that's not a bad trade-up, but in terms of the magnitude as well of the game all added into that. Going to Memphis, playing Navy. I think if you're an SMU fan, you're loving life right now. With all due respect to those schools, it's clearly an upgraded schedule. The money speaks for itself, and it's just the newness of it as well that I think is still on this and will probably last a lot longer than it would for other schools because they've been waiting on it so much longer than other schools that you're really going to let it soak in that you're traveling to Clemson and to Miami and to Florida State and all these places. So they're in a good spot. It's a tough schedule on paper. Do they have it in them to, run it back from last year? I don't know about all that. I haven't looked into them that deeply just yet, but they do have Kevin Jennings back pulling the trigger, so they will be an interesting team to watch, and they're certainly a team on paper that, a lot of it is expected of. Maybe not a playoff run again, but being in the mix for the ACC, I think that's certainly on the table for SMU again in 2025.
All right, good stuff, man. Glad we got to SMU. We can now move forward to Syracuse.